Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, that is right, my friends. You have tuned in to America's Home for Conservative, Not Bitter Talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. Second hour of today's program. We talked the first hour about Stephen Miller trying to teach the media a thing or two about criminal illegal aliens, deportations, how these criminal illegal aliens have wreaked havoc, caused tragedy. Not every last one of them, but it's clear, my friends, that Americans are not here today. Americans are dead or are dealing with the trauma of having been victimized by criminal illegal aliens that would not have been had we secured our border and did what we were supposed to do. That's what Stephen Miller was talking about due process, talking about deportations and all that. I've got one other short soundbite from that I want to get to. I wasn't sure if I was going to play this, but since I'm now into this hour, we're going to continue talking about this, kind of picking up where we left off. I want to play this. If you missed the previous hour, you can always go back and listen. Thankfully, there's archives of our show. We've got you covered, my friend. Just go to the website, toddhuffshow.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts, or even our Rumble channel. You can see that I do, in fact, have a face for radio. All right, so that's where we're headed here. I've got other things in the stack of stuff that we will hit as well, my friends. Before we do that, though, let me remind you, this program brought to you in part by our friends at Solti. Solti, my friends, is a all-natural supplement. It comes in the form of soft gels. They're not huge horse pills, as some people like to say either. These are very manageable, soft gels. You take 2 a day, and the research is in. Science has spoken. Very pro-science here on this program. Science has spoken, my friends, and the science says that this product helps lower cholesterol. It may be able to do the same thing for you as well. It's a very affordable, it's a very good first step if you're trying to take care of your heart, if you're concerned about your cholesterol. Maybe you're just thinking, hey, I want to age as gracefully and as maintain my health to the utmost of my abilities. I want to do this properly. Solti is a great regimen to begin. I take the product. I think you should consider doing it as well. You can go to Solti.com, SOLTEA, and as listeners of this program, you get specials. You get special bonuses. I mean, you are indeed special as a listener of this program. You're going to get 50% off your first 3-month supply and get free shipping. This is a lot less expensive than many people think. It's very manageable. It's a great place to start. It sure beats cholesterol medication and doctor's visits. If you can avoid that, you may still need that. I don't know, but this product should be able to get your cholesterol under control. At least it has for a lot of folks out there. And the science has spoken. It might be able to do the same thing for you. So, Solti.com, SOLTEA. Use promo code Todd to get that discount, 50% off your first 3-month supply and free shipping. Solti.com, SOLTEA, promo code Todd. All right. Let's kind of pick up where we left off with Stephen Miller for those that may not have heard the previous hour. Stephen Miller was being asked about individuals or people, specifically the individual who was deported from the United States that they're now being ordered to bring back. This member of the MS-13 gang, he was deported to El Salvador, all this stuff. All this, they were asked a lot of questions about this. And listen, the law needs to be followed. The Supreme Court has made a ruling here, and I'm not here to defend all that. What I'm here to defend is the rationale and the concept of what's happening here in our country. The concept here is that this country has secure borders. This country is sovereign. This country has every right to determine who is in this country. We have every right to that. That is, this should go without saying. This is basic 101. Now, I know that there are some, I've got some libertarian friends out there. Milton Friedman was one who was in favor of open borders. But again, it's got to be open borders even for those folks who think that. Open borders in this, not in this type of environment. You can't have a bunch of entitlements on one side of the border. You can't have a bunch of benefits on one side of the border and then expect it to be truly free, flowing people, both directions, because everybody's going to want to come to the place where there's benefits and there's handouts, and that's an unsustainable thing. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out, right? You can't have a welfare state that allows anyone to come in whenever they want and make any claim that they want. This is unsustainable. And it's one of the many reasons, the cost of illegal immigration is one of the many reasons why American families, American taxpayers are suffering. It's one of the main reasons. And so when you're sitting around your kitchen table trying to figure out how you're going to pay to send, your child to maybe a summer camp or who knows, right? To upgrade your kitchen, whatever it is that you're trying to do, some of that burden has been placed on you because of illegal immigration. Some of the burden has been placed on you because of waste, fraud, and abuse. Some of the burden has been placed upon you because the government has grown to massive levels. And all of these things compile and pile up on one another until it overwhelms the average American worker. And we've hit that point for a lot of folks. And where are the people? Where are the people who are out there speaking up for the American family? The media seems more concerned about these folks who are being deported than they are with the Americans who are dealing with the financial consequences, the just the calamity that causes. But even more importantly than that, the families who have lost loved ones or who had individuals in their families suffer as victims and suffer a potential lifetime of trauma because of the crimes committed against them by people who aren't supposed to be here. And Stephen Miller's saying this administration understands that the first job of government is to protect its people. It's the first job of government. Protect your people, protect their rights, protect them as best as you can from threats, whether they be foreign or domestic. And if people are actually harming your citizens, there needs to be consequences for those that inflict that harm. And that's all that this administration at its core is trying to do. People who are here illegally have no right to be here. People who are here illegally, who are doing evil things, violent things, wicked things, illegal things, they need to be at the front of the list of people who are being ushered out of this country and facing the consequences of what they have done. And Stephen Miller is saying, look, just because someone, we're starting with people who are illegal, members of gangs and who are illegal aliens, just because that's where we're starting, it doesn't mean that if you're not a member of a gang and you're here illegally, that suddenly you have a right to be here. And he says these folks have chosen to invade us. That's the soundbite I'm going to get to next. They are the ones who chose to take an action against us. They are the ones who have done things that are in violation of our laws. It's our responsibility, he's going to say here in this soundbite, to return them to their home countries, back where they came from. Listen, the United States, I don't know if you've ever seen the visual. There's a guy who's done this visual. Maybe I should look it up. He's got glass jars with marbles. I think there's marbles in them. And each marble represents some number. Maybe it's 1 million people. I think it is 1 million people because this country, more or less, on average, generally speaking, takes in 1 million legal immigrants every year. And he's got a glass jar. They're pretty big. And he drops one marble in to say, that's how many people are coming in here legally. And then he's got jars for all the other people around the world. Probably the vast majority of those people would love to come into the jar of the United States of America. But it's incomprehensibly large. You've got 8 billion people, or whatever the number is now, living on planet Earth. 8 billion people cannot become Americans in 2025. 8 billion people don't have the right to become Americans in 2025. I don't have the right to become a Canadian or a citizen of France. I don't have that right. That's not how this works. They have sovereignty and they have rules. And so this is pretty basic understanding. People, listen, even the most radical among us understand that because this is just logical common sense. And it's impossible for every person who is suffering or struggling or who wants to come here. It is just not possible. That's why I've said for a long time, one of the main primary jobs of people leading this country should be to promote the things that made this country great around the world. Quit apologizing for the United States of America. I don't care look, there might be a time to apologize on a case-by-case basis, but just don't go out there and blanket apologize as though we're what's wrong with the world. Folks, we are not perfect, but the United States of America is what's right in this world. The ideals, the United States of America as founded, not the United States of America that the left is trying to create and push down the throats of Americans. The United States of America as founded, those ideals need to be shared and promoted around the world. And before I have some knucklehead who wants to say that that's calling for slavery, that's not what I'm talking about. It's not what I'm talking about. Anyone with a tenth of a brain knows that. What I'm talking about are the principles outlined in the Declaration of Independence, the freedoms outlined in the Bill of Rights, the concepts that the founders built this nation upon. We're citizens, not subjects. Our rights come from our Creator and not from our government, not from another human being. Those rights are bestowed upon all people, and that it's the responsibility of government to recognize those rights and to respect those rights. Now, governments around the world frequently do not do this. In fact, I saw some idiotic article somewhere. It's in the stack of stuff from earlier this week. But some knucklehead wrote an article saying how Europe is now the example of what liberty and freedom is around the world today. Who's now arresting people for silently praying on the streets, even remotely near abortion clinics. Countries now who are arresting people for social media posts. Give me a break. Stop the virtue signaling. Stop the madness. The principles outlined in our founding documents are the principles that if we promoted around the world would be an infinitely better place. An infinitely better place. We're always going to deal with people who are trying to abuse power, who are up to no good, who are, selling political favors and all that sort of stuff, a la president bribery, that sort of thing. And those people need to be held accountable. But system-wise, what we have here in this country is what we need to be promoting around the world. And candidly, we've not had people promoting it around the world because they don't believe in it. They hate it. They want to remake it. They want to change our founding documents. I see them out there. I listen to them. I went to school. I listened to professors who believe these things. I had classmates who were parroting this nonsense. New Bill of Rights and all that. No, I think we did a darn good job with what we came up with in the founding of this nation, and we need people who are promoting that around the world. That is the fastest way, the best way to watch other countries improve their circumstances back home so that when folks are deported, they're deported to places that are better than they were when they left those countries. You still got the issue of corruption. You're going to have to root that out sometimes it's the hard way. Some of this stuff runs deep. I'm not saying these are easy problems to fix, but the United States of America cannot be on the hook to fix everyone's problems around the world, and you don't have a right to show up here and just waltz in and think that you can just live here and you break our laws, violate our sovereignty. That's not the way it works. We've won on this issue. The vast majority of Americans now see this for what it is. This is a good thing, and I haven't even gotten to the problems that come with the fentanyl crisis and drugs coming across the border, human trafficking. There's a whole bunch of just absolute atrocious stuff that's happening, that has happened, that was allowed to happen because the previous administration didn't care. And candidly, our government as a whole, outside of the 4 years Trump was here, didn't care about what was happening there. They were happy to use it as a political issue to help them fundraise, to help them campaign and so forth, but nothing was done until Trump. Nothing was done until Trump. These are steps that have to be taken. And the administration, look, is sometimes going to maybe cross a line or do something that may be technically outside of their role or their responsibility or what they're legally allowed to do. I'm not here to excuse it. I'm here to say that is part of the process. It happens in every administration. Lawsuits are filed. Things that were, Biden did it with the student loan debt. In fact, he bragged about trying to ignoring a Supreme Court order and still figuring out a way to do something the court told him he could not legally, according to the Constitution and statute, do. This is just the process. It needs to be done. And I commend the folks in the administration for doing this hard work because there has been so much tragedy and loss, and the American people do not need to suffer that any longer. So I want to wrap this up. I want to play this bite. This is another clip, about a minute long. Stephen Miller talking here to the media, reminding the media that, look, the folks who came here illegally, are the ones who started this. We don't owe these folks anything. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but we don't owe these folks anything. They came here illegally. It's our responsibility to return them to where they came from. Here's what Stephen Miller has to say.
The wrong person was sent somewhere. He's an illegal alien from El Salvador. Where was he sent? To El Salvador. Where does he belong? In El Salvador.
Right? It's different.
He belongs.
Sending someone home and sending them into a prison that they could remain in.
It is up to El Salvador how to handle the process for their own citizens. Again, what you seem to be asking us to do is to change the government and the laws of El Salvador. So if we deport somebody back to, for example, Syria, should we be closely involved on a day-to-day basis with the Syrian government, detailing that person's life and future? If we deport, say, 100,000 people back to Haiti, should we open a case file on each of those 100,000 people and ask every day, what's their housing situation? What's their healthcare situation? What might they need? What might they want? Once someone's out of our country, that becomes the problem of their host country, not our country. These people chose to invade us.
That's right.
So there's a lot of concern from the corporate media about the invaders, but they chose to invade us. It's our responsibility to return them back to where they came from, or another country willing to take them.
Okay, and that's something, again, he's being questioned about, well, they sent him to a prison there. They did this or that. His point is, look, that is not our concern. We are sovereign in our country. We have rules and laws here in our nation. If you are here illegally, then our laws say that you can be deported. What happens to you back home, we can't possibly be concerned with all of this. We can't possibly, why are you, on the one hand, you're telling us to ignore the laws on our books, and on the next hand, you're telling us to concern ourselves to just an infinitesimal degree with the laws on another nation's books. Our law is clear. You're not supposed to be here if you're not given permission to be here. This isn't complicated. They chose to invade us, he said. It's our responsibility to return them back to where they came from. And what makes this really sad is that, again, I try very hard not to emotionalize this. I think it's important that we are aware of some of the individual cases that exist, just so we're aware of what a particular policy or a particular set of decisions or lack of decisions made by those in political power can create, and how to fix it, right? How to understand. So I don't really want to, you see the families who have lost loved ones, children, or in the case of, college-aged women being raped and murdered or something atrocious and evil like that. I've got those families need to be recognized, I suppose, honored for just what they've gone through. They need to be recognized, and it needs to be recognized that we, as a country, failed them. The administration that allowed this stuff to happen previously failed them. But at the same time, it can get very, very personal, and emotions get incredibly high. So it's important to take a step back and simply say, there are documented examples of people who are dead that would not be dead if the previous administration handled the border like this one did. Like this one has been, President Trump. And so we need to do more of that. We need to do more of it. And to Stephen Miller's point, which I think he said in the clip I played last hour, there's been many lives saved because of the people that are being deported, that are violent, that are now incapable of committing violence here in our country anyway, because they're not here any longer. So I think that that's the compassionate thing to do. Protect the lives of Americans. It's the number one job of our federal government. Friends, really quickly as I wrap up this segment, MyPillow has a large allotment of sheets that they are going to offer to you at wholesale prices. They're dramatically discounted. MyPillow.com is where you can go. Promo code Todd gets you these discounts, 50% plus. These are great prices on Giza Dream Sheets and Percale bed sheets as well. MyPillow.com, promo code Todd gets you those discounts. Or if you prefer, you can call 800-615-2015, 800-615-2015. I'm out of time this segment. Going to shift gears as we move into the next segment, my friends. In the meantime, sit tight. Back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Shifting gears here as we move into the latter half of the second hour of our program today. I talked earlier this week, actually on Monday, Governor Josh Shapiro's home was his governor's mansion in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, was targeted with arson while he and his family were there sleeping. While guests of the family, Josh Shapiro is Jewish, he had guests over and they had celebrated the Jewish Seder meal, the Passover meal at the governor's residence. And now he has been targeted by some lunatic here. I talked about this on Monday. I don't want to rehash everything that I said, but I basically said to the left, this is how you do this sort of thing, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent or anything else. This is unacceptable in our society. This is, you're not going to hear me say things like the left said when Trump was nearly assassinated. They said, I wish the shooter would have had a better aim. I wish he had spent more time training. You remember this sort of stuff on social media. So close, right? Wrong Trump. Anytime someone from Trump's family passes away, the news breaks that there's someone who has died with the name Trump. Inevitably, we find a hashtag that's trending on social media that says wrong Trump. Folks are enamored. I cited polls an enormous number of people on the left think it's justifiable to murder Trump and Elon Musk. These folks are not in a position to lecture anybody. I don't know we still don't know the motivations, and that's what this clip is I'm going to cue this up here in a second, but we don't know the motivations of the individual who allegedly set the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania ablaze. We do know that it's not something that we should allow or condone in our society, regardless of who that is occupying that office. And the left has a hard time saying this. The left also wants to blame Trump for everything. So, going to head on over here to MSNBC. MSNBC, there's a host of a show. I don't even know that I knew she had a show. Her name is Simone Sanders. This was Monday night. She is suggesting, insinuating, perhaps even blaming President Trump for the arson in Josh Shapiro's governor's mansion. Now, is this surprising? No, but it's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable to me that any person could draw this conclusion. This is just insanity at its finest. Blaming. Now, she's got guests on here. The typical leftist panel, Democrat panel. She's got George Conway on here. But she's got a panel of guests, and she just kind of goes off here blaming President Trump for the arson committed at Josh Shapiro's mansion, governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. Listen for yourself here. This is Simone Sanders on MSNBC.
What we do know is this is a long line and a string of political attacks. And I remember very vividly when President Trump was the attempted shooting against him, and all the Democrats and the Republicans spoke out, and you had a Democrat spin it over backwards and say, we have to take the temperature down. We have to bring the temperature down, when they weren't even the people that ratcheted the temperature up.
Are you kidding me,
The people that ratcheted the temperature up, the folks that should have been the loudest here, in my opinion, it should have been coming from the Oval Office. But today, all Donald Trump had to say, and I'm going to paraphrase here, the attacker wasn't a fan of Trump. I understand from what I read and from what I've been told. So the president, the attacker, basically wasn't a fan of anybody. He probably just a whack job. And certainly a thing like that cannot be allowed to happen.
Me, 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 me. That's what Donald Trump is all about. Me. Those are his pronouns. Me, me, me.
George Conway. Me, 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 me. Well, let's just for a minute speculate as to why Trump would say that this guy is not a fan of Trump. Why do you think? Why do you think that Trump would say that? Because, my friends, he knows that he's blamed for everything. And so he goes out there and he says, look, this guy's a whack job. Not a fan of Trump, not a fan of anybody, it appears. He's just a whack job. George Conway says these are Trump's pronouns, me, 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 me. I wish, by the way, that those were the only pronouns that we had to deal with. He thinks he's being clever there. But Trump is Trump, no matter what George Conway would have us believe. Meanwhile, boys are not girls, George. I don't want to make this overly complicated for you. You think you're being witty there, but you're being a little bit silly, and it shows. But this is preposterous. I just shared with you, you remember after Trump was assassinated, or forgive me, the attempted assassination of Trump, after he was targeted by an assassin. By the way, a couple of times that we know of, Trump was targeted by assassins. Once he was nearly assassinated. I mean, he was millimeters away from potentially, without being too graphic here, having his head taken off, basically. So I remember that. That wasn't that long ago, Simone Sanders. I don't remember Democrats wailing about this. I actually remember there were some, and I commend those that do. I commend those that have the strength of character to say this is not acceptable. We can't allow this to happen. I say commend. It shouldn't be that hard, but I'll at least throw you the bone and say thank you. Thank you for being a reasonable adult today. Thank you for those who said those things, who actually understood that politics should not include bullets flying through the air, as what happened in July in Butler, Pennsylvania. I remember a lot of people doing exactly what I said, saying the shooter needed to have more target practice. I remember people criticizing his aim. I remember multiple people wishing that Trump would have been hit by the bullet. Do you not remember this, Simone? Where were you? What do you mean the people on the left are not part of the problem? I just cited a survey on this program. Maybe I need to pull it back up. But a survey that found that people on the left think that a large percentage believe that Trump and Musk should be murdered. I mean, what are you talking about? I don't know, and listen, the Washington Times, I'm going to pull it up. This is not even the source I looked at before. This is from, when is this from? It doesn't have a date, does it? Yeah, Wednesday, April 9th. This was just a week ago. Assassination culture. That's the headline of this piece. Liberal acceptance of political violence puts Trump, Musk in crosshairs. What do we find out here? Left-wing assassination culture is on the rise. Susan Ferraccio of the Washington Times. A recent survey found that about half of liberal-leaning U.S. residents could justify the assassinations of President Trump and his government efficiency advisor, Elon Musk. Simone Sanders, are you aware of this? Simone Sanders, Donald Trump in his statement said that sort of thing, the arson of the Pennsylvania governor's residence, should not be happening. He pointed out that this guy wasn't a supporter of Trump, didn't appear to be a supporter of anybody on Trump's side. Trump pointed this out because he knew he was going to be blamed. Where's your outrage about this? More than half of liberals say that destroying Tesla dealerships is acceptable. I'm reading here from the Washington Times. They also support Luigi Mangione, the 26-year-old man accused of gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, according to the survey by the Network Contagion Research Institute. So they're in favor of vigilante, what they would call justice, vigilante murders on the streets of New York. They're in favor of Tesla dealerships being targeted and destroyed. This survey doesn't point it out, but I've seen it elsewhere. They're in favor of Tesla owners, many Tesla owners who were just a few short years ago when they bought their Teslas, thought that they were doing the greatest leftist act you could possibly do. Save the planet, buy a Tesla. Now they're being targeted, and the left says that's exactly what should happen. I've seen man-on-the-street interviews. They ask these folks, what should people do who own a Tesla? They should sell it. Well, who should they sell it to? Is the person that buys it part of the problem? Because you want someone who's already bought the car to sell it, but how are they supposed to sell it if no one should buy it? It's like they haven't even thought through step one. This is morally reprehensible. This is wicked and evil. This should not be a majority of anything. This shouldn't even be a majority of maniacal dictators who believe this. This is unbelievable, and Simone Sanders wants to blame Trump and Republicans. Talk about tone deaf. And it's why no one watches her stupid show. Quick time out, my friends. Be back here in just a minute. Welcome back here, my friends. Final segment of today's program. I want to move on here. I don't know if you've seen. Did you see Trump's statement about Holy Week? Here we are. We're on Wednesday. Tomorrow would be Thursday, which is traditionally believed to be the day that Jesus celebrated Passover with his disciples, that we now refer to, people who are Christians refer to as the Last Supper. Friday will be Good Friday, which we'll talk about these things here later in the week. But Good Friday is the day that Jesus was crucified. This is a historical event that is written about in places other than the Bible. And Jesus was crucified on Good Friday. And then on Sunday, people call it Easter Sunday, but I think it's better to call it Resurrection Sunday. The Bible tells us that Jesus, being God and fully man, raised from the dead to demonstrate his victory, to claim victory over sin and death and the grave. And because of that, he paid the consequences for your sin and for my sin upon the cross. The wrath of God was directed at Jesus. If you know Jesus, if you know the Father through the Son Jesus, the wrath of God is not directed at you. It's directed at the Son. It's a remarkable thing. The story, folks, listen, I know some of you are devout believers and so forth. Some of you maybe don't know much about the Bible. I strongly encourage you. It is truly the best. I'm not making this up. There's no exaggeration. None of this story is the best story ever told by light years. Light years. In fact, I've been doing this study, which I highly recommend. It's free to do. It's called the Bible Recap with Tara Lee Cobble. It goes through the entire story of the Bible. It's a year-long plan. It technically starts in January, but you can do it at any time. I did it on the Bible app. I'm behind. I'm in the New Testament. I'm about, 80% of the way through it, 80 or 85%. Phenomenal. And I've read through the Bible in the past, but this is phenomenal. But this week, to the Christian faith, forget about the faith, to the follower of Christ, the individual follower of Christ, is the most meaningful of the year. The most consequential day in the history of the world literally took place this week, approximately 2,000 years ago. And Trump's White House released a statement. I think they released it. I don't know if it was on Palm Sunday, but it was in reference to this Holy Week. And it's remarkable to look at what Trump says in his remarks versus what was said previously. In fact, one of Biden's remarks going back to 2021 was more of a get your vaccine sort of things than actually a statement about Easter, which is sickening and disgusting. But I'm going to read a part of this, just a part of this. This is the White House statement from President Trump. By the way, for those who say that Christians shouldn't vote for Trump, just listen to these words and compare them to what was written previously by the Biden White House. During this sacred week, we acknowledge that the glory of Easter Sunday cannot come without the sacrifice Jesus Christ made on the cross. In his final hours on earth, Christ willingly endured excruciating pain. By the way, that term literally came from, it means out of the cross. When I learned that, I stopped using that phrase to describe whatever pain I was in, because excruciating I've never felt excruciating pain. I felt severe pain before, but nothing that's compared to suffering on a cross, which was designed to inflict maximum amounts of pain to those who were suffering. So Jesus endured excruciating pain, torture, and execution on the cross out of a deep and abiding love for all his creation. Through his suffering, we have redemption. Through his death, we are forgiven of our sins. Through his resurrection, we have hope of eternal life. On Easter morning, the stone is rolled away. The tomb is empty, and light prevails over darkness, signaling that death does not have the final word. This Holy Week, my administration renews its promise to defend the Christian faith in our schools, military, workplaces, hospitals, and halls of government. We will never waver in safeguarding the right to religious liberty, upholding the dignity of life, and protecting God in our public square. I probably would have reworded that a little bit. God doesn't need our protection, but we should be able to to express our faith and share our beliefs in the public square for certain. But this is a remarkable thing. In fact, this statement is to a Christian is just truly remarkable. It really is. It's a remarkable thing to behold. As we focus on Christ's redeeming sacrifice, we look to his love, humility, obedience, even in life's most difficult and uncertain moments. This week, we pray for an outpouring of the Holy Spirit upon our beloved nation. We pray that America will remain a beacon of faith, hope, and freedom for the entire world. And we pray to achieve a future that reflects the truth, beauty, and goodness of Christ's eternal kingdom in heaven. May God bless you and your family during this special time of year, and may he continue to bless the United States of America. I've got to go. That's Trump's statement on Easter. SDG.